Coming up in today's Forgotten 80s television video, we've got a little known Gerry Anderson series, the perfect Long John Silver in Brian Blessed, a villainous Mike Reid, a scantily clad Glynis Barber, and nightclub owner Meat Loaf. Puppet maestro Gerry Anderson was responsible for many classic, fondly recalled series over the years, such as Thunderbirds, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90 and, in the 1980s, Terrorhawks. But how many of you remember Dick Spanner P.I.?
The name's Spanner. Dick Spanner. Private investigator. It was midnight. The streets were empty. It had been raining cats and dogs. Now it was just raining. It was the kind of night I just knew nothing was going to happen.
It's the wrong guy.
First shown on Channel 4 in 1987 as a segment on the Sunday morning show Network 7, Dick Spanner differed from other Gerry Anderson productions as it used stop-motion animation and employed much more humour than the majority of his other work. Packed with puns and brilliantly inventive visual gags, Dick Spanner P.I. was very much in the vein of Police Squad or The Naked Gun, crossed with a Raymond Chandler novel. The voice of Dick Spanner was provided by the late Shane Rimmer, who voiced Scott Tracy in Thunderbirds. All 22 episodes of the fantastically quirky Dick Spanner P.I. are available on DVD. Another distinctive 1980s TV series which utilised a short episode format, Jane was based on the comic strip of the same name, which appeared in the Daily Mirror between 1932 and 1959. This visually inventive series was broadcast early evenings on BBC Two in 1982 and 1984, and starred Glynis Barber as the eponymous heroine who would often lose her clothing in the midst of saving the day. Staying true to its comic strip roots, all of the action took place inside comic strip panels, making Jane one of the most visually distinctive television series of its day. In addition to Glynis Barber, the fine cast also included Robin Bailey, Frank Thornton, Max Wall and Suzanne Danielle. Sadly, Jane is not available on DVD, but you can see the series here on YouTube.
Gaffer. Morning, Ginger. Isn't it about time you bought a new motor?
Don't talk daft, it's a collector's piece.
Yeah, Rolf.
Hey, Tish, you can't buy these, they're rarer than rocking horse manure.
He's the gaffer. Doesn't need to take advice. He's the gaffer.
More overlooked than forgotten, I've included Yorkshire television sitcom The Gaffer here as it doesn't often seem to be discussed when talk turns to British television sitcoms of the 80s. Starring the late great Bill Maynard as Fred Moffat, owner of a struggling engineering firm which seems to be permanently on the verge of collapse, The Gaffer ran for 3 series on ITV between 1981 and 1983 and proved to be a hit with viewers. Series creator Graham White was actually a managing director of an engineering firm when he wrote The Gaffer, using his own real-life experiences as a basis for storylines. Although all episodes of The Gaffer are on DVD, copies are now very hard to come by. In 1984, children across Britain were left traumatised after watching these opening credits. Broadcast on ITV in January and February 1984, Chucky was based on the 1968 novel of the same name by John Wyndham and concerned a young boy called Matthew who is chosen by an alien entity to be the source of information about Earth. As only he can see Chucky in the form of a swirling vortex, Matthew's parents start to worry about his health as he seems to be continually having conversations with himself. Now regarded as a cult classic, Chucky is nevertheless a bit of a forgotten gem, although many of you who watched it at the time are probably still having nightmares about those opening titles now. Watching the opening credits of Noah's Castle today, you could be forgiven for thinking that the series was a gritty adult drama screened after The Watershed. However, while certainly gritty and at times fairly bleak, Noah's Castle was actually a children's drama series broadcast on late afternoons. Set in a Britain that is on the verge of total anarchy due to there being no government and food prices rocketing to an all-time high, Noah's Castle was an ambitious and thought-provoking series that tackled some complex issues in a way that was equally accessible to both younger and older viewers. Finding the DVD release of Noah's Castle today is, unfortunately, no easy task.
Not the police. For argument's sake, say a strong-arm mob came up here. What sort of protection you got against them, mate? You know what you get, Norman? Nothing but thick heads and bruises. No Swiss francs and no stores. And there wouldn't be a thing that you could do about it. Would there, Norman?
I accept nothing. And I agree to nothing.
And if you ain't very careful, my old son, you'll have nothing.
Some actors are born to play particular roles. Such was the case with the national treasure that is Brian Blessed and the iconic character of Long John Silver from Treasure Island. Also known as Disney's Return to Treasure Island, this enjoyable bit of swashbuckling from 1986 was actually made by HTV Wales, who would prove their expertise in this area with previous productions such as Kidnapped and The Master of Ballantrae. Set 10 years after the events of Treasure Island, former cabin boy Jim Hawkins is now a man who has just graduated from Oxford. His celebrations are cut short when Long John Silver enters his life once more, hell-bent on finding another hoard of buried treasure. Once again, while John Silver's Return to Treasure Island is on DVD, copies are now few and far between. However, you can currently watch all 10 episodes right here on YouTube. After the hugely successful Hammer House of Horror series from 1980, the legendary Hammer Film Studios once more ventured into television territory in 1984, with the lesser remembered Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense. Made in conjunction with 20th Century Fox Television, when broadcast in the USA, the series was rather blandly retitled Fox Mystery Theatre. Although not quite living up to the standards set by the brilliant Hammer House of Horror from 4 years earlier, Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense still had its moments and featured an array of great guest stars including Peter Wingard, Susan George, Stephanie Beacham, David McCallum and Dirk Benedict. The series is hard to find on DVD but is currently being shown on Talking Pictures TV. A spin-off from the popular comedy drama Shillingbury Tales, Cuffy starred the great Bernard Cribbins as the title character, who lives in a scruffy, run-down caravan in the picturesque village of Shillingbury, and often finds himself unwittingly involved in various light-hearted mishaps and adventures. Also reprising his role from Shillingbury Tales was Carry On star Jack Douglas. The perfect Sunday evening entertainment, Cuffy was broadcast on ITV in March and April 1983. As far as the DVD goes, as with other network releases mentioned today, it is now, unfortunately, out of print. Written by the prolific comedy writer Roy Clark, the man behind classics such as Last of the Summer Wine, Open All Hours and Keeping Up Appearances, Flickers was more of a comedy drama rather than a straight sitcom, with a cast headed by Bob Hoskins and Francis de la Tour, and also featuring the likes of Sherry Hewson, Sheila Reid and Philip Maddock. The series was set in the early part of the 20th century and featured showman Arnie Cole's attempts to make it big in the burgeoning film industry. As to be expected with such a winning cast and celebrated writer, both the scripts and the performances are top-notch, making Flickers a rather underrated gem that deserves a second look. Once again, the very best of luck trying to find a copy of the DVD. I promised you Meat Loaf as a nightclub owner, so here he is.
Welcome to the rebellious jukebox.
You must be the new owner.
That you did not, boy!
A real curio from the vaults of 1980s British television, Rebellious Jukebox, directed by 10cc legends Godley and Cream, is arguably the most obscure series I've ever featured on Stuview TV. Made in the UK in 1983 for broadcast on American cable television, Rebellious Jukebox finally aired in the UK on Channel 4 in 1985. A strange mix of comedy sketches and live music performances from the likes of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Spandau Ballet and some rather more obscure acts, the series, which also featured Jules Holland as the club manager, passed most people by and lasted for just 2 episodes. Check out the series on YouTube if you are curious for more. Are you one of the few people who recall Rebellious Jukebox? How many of the other shows featured today do you remember watching? Do you have any favourites amongst them? Please let me know in the comments. As always, many thanks for watching, and do join me next time for more nostalgic goodness.